Friends, please join me in a spirit of prayer. Our gracious Sovereign and our God, assist me to proclaim, to spread to all the world abroad the honors and glories of thy name. Amen. Well, friends, I already mentioned pumpkins this morning, so that's going to be a real giveaway when I ask this question. Does anybody have their house already decorated for that holiday at the end of this month? What's it called? Halloween. Have you looked up and down your streets to see cobwebs being strung in trees, pumpkins being put out in the yard, other things around the neighborhood, giving us a sign and symbol that indeed that holiday, that ode to fear, is right around the corner? Any of you like Halloween or grew up doing Halloween? Anybody have ever been trick-or-treating here? Right? Anybody ever been scared on Halloween? Gotten scared? Boo! It's not Halloween yet, right? I tried. Okay, but I think of Halloween as kind of its biggest moment in my life was probably when I was off at the University of Texas, living on the fine arts floor. And there we would spend weeks getting ready and prepared to put on a fear factory there in the dorm. Now, the key was not tipping off the RAs and just kind of making it happen without permission. But we would gather newspaper for months and literally make a pile about waist deep in this big common area, and people would be hiding under there on one side, and they'd kind of reach out for you, and then people would jump over to the other side, and then my friend Joey Calaruso would be hiding up in the rafters where he'd pop down with a butcher knife and blood. Am I scaring some of y'all? I don't mean to be. It was kind of crazy and fun. I got to be the tour guide and kind of bring people through it. But it seems as though we have a fascination with things that make us afraid or fear. How many of y'all know scary movies, right? They're all there to remind us that sometimes fear is just this kind of false evidence appearing real, right? How many of you have ever yelled out at a TV screen or a movie theater, "No, don't go in there," right? I mean, we know it's a setup, what's about to happen, that fear that's real. But I think it's our way as a culture of dealing with kind of the existential threats that are all around us. Those things that if we were to stop and think about them, like death, they give us cause for real fear. It's no coincidence that that holiday dedicated to fear comes the night before All Saints' Day. It's there as our way of trying to poke at it, to get at, to allow our mind to process the fact that all of us live lives of deep vulnerability and that our future, when we really look at it, isn't necessarily set. And so what will happen next gives us fear. There's fear in all kinds of ways. Anytime we kind of go or do something new, there's the fear of the unknown. Every time we come across someone who looks different than us, it becomes easy to have fear about how we interact. When we look at life often, there's cause for fear. If you have anybody you love, am I the only one who worries about them? Right? There's fear. That fear can be a part of who we are in a good way. I mean, sometimes it's good to be fearful of things that can harm me, right? It keeps me safe. It helps me make good choices. It lets me know what the different consequences might be as I think through and process my fear. But there's another kind of fear, a fear that kind of debilitates us or scares us or leads us to dwell in these kind of thought and mind places that take us far away from who God made us to be. And when that kind of fear enters our mind, we need to kind of remember what God has done for us in Jesus. And it's amazing to me because when I look at Ephesians and I read the book and I kind of go through those 6 short chapters that can change your life, as I read through this work and think about what beyond normal might look like, where we might be going or heading because of this fearful time we've been through, I'm reminded of the same things that Paul draws out. What does he say our kind of antidote to fear is? Like decorating the tree, giving the kids candy to rot their teeth, right? Filling up movies with all kinds of scary scenes? No, he says there in chapter 4, verses 4 through 10, he reminds them that there is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to the hope of your calling, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is above all and through all and in all. I wonder, might that be good news for any of us today? Do any of us still get afraid? There's one God, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God who is in all and for all. And in case that isn't enough, as he's reminding us in that book, that this God actually gives you grace, an unmerited gift of God. Not because you deserve it or did something right, but because God so loves you that God moves beyond our fear to break down anything that might hold us back or keep us from receiving that love. I mean, think of how this works. It's kind of something that's hard to get our mind around. I saw a glimpse at it this week. I don't know if you know, but I shared with the Bible study, and I'm not trying to keep secrets from y'all or anything. Just wanted to let you know. I had cataract surgery on Wednesday. What's that you said? I'm too young to have cataract surgery? Thank you. That was so nice. I'm glad you said that. I actually looked it up. I looked up cataract surgery, and they call the type I had to have a pre-senile. Think about that for a second, right? That means but the cutoff for pre-senile is 45, and I'm 49, so I had senile surgery. But that kind of like, how did it work? Like, why would I choose to let someone get up in my eye like that and do something to repair the lens in my eye? Like, why would I allow that to occur? Well, many of you in this room, and many more watching at home, sent me emails about how much better you can see, right? There was a foretaste that you gave me because of your witness that let me know not only could I live through it, but also, too, it would make things better. And there's something about that witnessing and sharing that helped me have confidence. And let me tell you, friends, that when I was laying there on that OR table and they went and they had taken out my lens, as soon as they put that lens in, all the double vision I had had in my left eye went away, and I'll never forget how that metal rafter looked to only see one. And the clarity that came, right? It's a beautiful thing. But I think that's how God works through the people of God in the church too. Gives us kind of these foretastes. I think I've already mentioned to you my love of fried shrimp, right? Has anybody heard that before in this room? I think you have, right? But if I was behaving while my grandmother was cooking fried shrimp, if I was misbehaving and I tried to grab some, I would be afraid, right? Fear of the wooden spoon. It was going to get me. But if I had been good, she would give me a little foretaste. a little snack before everybody else, and one of those shrimp to try and to enjoy. I wanted to be good because I'd had a foretaste. There are things that happen in life when we're doing kind of what we should, when we're being faithful and trying, where God shows up. I think one of the most beautiful foretastes I see day in, day out is people who lose a loved one, but share with each other the love that loved one had for them. You see, I think these foretastes aren't just like little kind of glimpses. I think somehow in the whole fabric of the universe, God has put little reminders of grace and love so that we, no matter what tribe or culture we were raised in, no matter where we grew up or what our family name is, might be reminded and called forward to have examples of God's love alive in our world and lives. And sometimes it works in ways that we can name and we can circle and we can say, that's it. There's a foretaste. Other times it moves through the course of somebody who was in your life all the years long, and only at the end do you realize that that love you shared was something more than the moments on this earth. And you see, those foretastes of love, those reminders of grace, that's what gets us through our fear. We get tempted to think that somehow we get ourselves through fear. Does anybody remember the show that this sermon's kind of named after, like The Fear Factor? Has anybody ever heard of that with Joe Rogan? If you haven't, it's okay. It was a show where they tried to scare you by showing you people having to endure horrible things and get over their phobia. Okay? And I won't actually give you any descriptions, and thank God there's no YouTube videos on it. Don't Google it, okay, because it's bad, right? But the Fear Factor had things like, if anybody's afraid of spiders or snakes or other things, they would put their arms in or do different challenges to have to endure things. I think a lot of us still live that way, right? Somebody loses a job and faces a struggle. They need to fix their problem, right? Somebody has a challenge ahead of them, like a surgery, a procedure. Well, toughen up. You should know better, right? We live in a world that says we fix our problems, we overcome our fear. We learn this from a very young age. I learned it on a football field, right? Yes, coach, they outweigh me. You know, the coach would say, yes, Brad, they outweigh you by 100 pounds, but go be the tackling dummy one more time, right? Because we're going to win district. And we have to overcome things and do things. Those are not bad things. But don't mistake that for what Ephesians is saying. Paul isn't pointing to ourselves. He's not saying be tougher. He's not saying overcome your fear on your own. He's calling each one of us to remember who God is and what God might do even through us to move us beyond our fear, to help us love in a hurt and broken world. For we are called people, called to give foretastes of the grace of God to a world that is literally starving to death, that needs people like you and me to allow the grace of God to so transform our hearts that we would join with the literally billions of Christians in the world to make differences and transformation in our families, in our communities, and in our lives by remembering who God is and allowing that grace to transform us. You know, today's World Communion Sunday, and in a minute, we're going to share that reminder, that sacramental reminder of God's ultimate expression of grace in the world. And then last week, I got to participate in two very beautiful baptisms that were unique and different and involved babies. And when I get to be part of one of those and I get to present the children, y'all have seen me in this service. I take the child and I bring him out, right? And I bring him out into the middle of the congregation, but not out of the lights, right? Because I need to be in the lights for the camera. But I bring him out into the middle of the congregation, and there I say something like this: "Oh, sweet child, I am so glad that you were baptized. Remember always that you have to overcome fear on your own." Right? You're in this by yourself. If somebody's mean, get them back. If somebody's rude, take them out. Yeah? Is that what I say? No. I say you are surrounded and heard a prayer that reminds you that these people here each represent thousands and even millions of people around the world who have made a covenant with you to remind you that you aren't on your own. They're going to surround you with a community of love and forgiveness all the days of your life. And then I say, but if they don't, let me know and we'll get them. I do say that. But I wonder, are babies the only ones that need to hear that reminder on this World Communion Sunday? Or have in our fears we forgotten? Friends, each one of you is a beloved child of God. You've been surrounded by a covenant of love and forgiveness, and promise to share that love and forgiveness with people you may never even get to meet or know. But all of us do this, not because of our own strength or ability, but because the love of God lives inside of us, and it is that grace that makes a difference in the world. My friends, I encourage you this day that no matter what you face and no matter what is your fear, to always remember the love of God, which is our salvation. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, shared with sisters and brothers around the world. Go in God's name and remember that you are beloved. Amen.